Good morning, everyone, and it's great to be with you today. My name is Matt Verrell, and I am an associate executive coach with CheekyLittleCareers.com. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Husnara Begum, who is the editor at Cheeky Little Careers, also careers guru as well, outside of that, a former Magic Circle lawyer as well. And Husnara, thank you for joining us today.
You're very welcome. It's really nice to see you again, Matt. So what are we talking about in this video?
So we are going to be talking about the external NQ jobs market. There will be a link, or if you haven't seen it already, check out the other video where we've discussed the internal NQ qualification process. And so today we're going to focus a little bit on the external market. So I guess kicking it off, Husnara, should we be looking at external opportunities?
That's quite a difficult one because not to dodge the answer, but it's ultimately a personal choice. I think if you have not enjoyed your training contract, then it's certainly worth picking up the phone to recruiters just to see what's available out there. But even if you have enjoyed your training contract, but perhaps you're concerned about whether or not you'll get an offer in your first choice department, it's really difficult to know whether to accept that or not. And for me, the way you can make that choice a bit more sort of manageable is to get a sense of what's going on externally, because you may find that the practice area you're interested in, there are quite a few NQ jobs externally. So for what I tend to encourage a lot of trainees to do is see what the landscape looks like externally, and then that will give you a little bit of data and evidence to decide how that compares to internal options. Chances are the internal options might look slightly better because the NQ jobs market is super competitive.
Mm, mm. Yes, and also I've heard a lot of people, they're quite concerned about going externally and taking on a new role, particularly in light of the pandemic and the uncertainties around retention. And you hear a lot of people saying, oh, if I'm the first into an organization, I might be the first out again. And what's your take on the status of the external jobs market in light of this pandemic that we're going through?
I'm pleased to say that there have been some green shoots, and you only need to look at the legal press to see firms are paying COVID bonuses, and the the outlook for the legal sector has looks more positive than we thought it would do this time last year, when everyone was bracing themselves for quite significant rounds of redundancies. And what that meant for the external jobs market was the shutters came down and lots of firms instigated hiring freezes. The knock-on effect meant that the NQ jobs market pretty much collapsed. I don't like to scaremonger, but it was pretty awful out there. This was this time last year when the August 2020 qualifiers were preparing to end their training contracts and looking for NQ jobs. For the spring 2021 qualifiers, the market was still quite flat, but there were definitely signs of recovery. The market this summer, I think, will be better, but even when there isn't a pandemic, it's worth noting that, as I already highlighted, the NQ jobs market is super competitive and that there is always an oversupply of candidates. And I sometimes get challenged from this point because trainees will say to me, hang on a minute, I've been inundated with emails on LinkedIn from recruiters. So it's worth noting that those emails are really a recruiter's attempt to harvest CVs, because that's how they boost their database. It doesn't necessarily mean that they've got tons of live NQ vacancies. So I think there is a degree of inflation that goes on.
So we need to be careful when we are receiving all these requests for CVs that actually maybe it's for their own kind of needs, not putting ours first necessarily all the time.
Yeah, I think that recruiters do overstate how active the market is. Not all, there are some very, very good recruiters out there, but the bit that frustrates me is that some recruiters will flag a role to a candidate and they won't necessarily highlight to the candidate that what they're suggesting is a speculative application based on that firm's hiring trends in the past. Okay, so there are certain firms that I describe as the usual suspects because they're quite well known for recruiting NQs. And chances are they may well be looking for NQs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are actively looking. And that's where you need to really push back with recruiters and ask them, look, is this the live role where the firm is actively asking for CVs? Or are you suggesting that we take a punt and approach a firm on the basis that they are potentially always looking out for stellar candidates?
Mm. And as a candidate, you can just have the courage to ask that question quite directly, can't you, and see what the answer or the response is.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that although it's really important to keep recruiters on side because they're more likely to then reciprocate and treat you as a preferred candidate because recruiters don't like difficult candidates. You know, that's a given. It is important to manage the recruiter quite carefully and to rein them in, especially if they're suggesting what recruiters call a spray and pray approach, where they want to sort of carpet bomb the market with your CV, and that's something I would potentially advise against because what you don't want is for employers to end up seeing your CV twice from two different agencies. Similarly, if you approach a firm and they're not looking, and then in a few months' time they are, you could potentially prejudice your chances of getting an interview when the firm is actively looking. So it's really about working collaboratively with a recruiter and managing how they're going to manage your search.
Yeah. So let's say that I'm about to qualify and I really want to look externally. In your opinion, should I be using a recruiter or should I be making direct applications?
That's a really, really good question. I think that there is a trend towards employers recruiting directly because it's cheaper. They don't need to pay a placement fee. But recruiters do play quite a crucial role in all of this. Looking at the trainees that I've supported on my outplacement program over the past 9 qualification rounds, the vast majority of those trainees have secured roles through recruiters. So they do have an important role to play. But I would say about a third, which is not an insignificant amount. Sorry, not a third, 30%. Sorry, I'm really bad at maths. So 30%, which is not an insignificant number, have secured roles through direct approaches. Now, what do you mean by direct approaches, Matt? Do you mean where there's a job advertised, or do you mean speculatively approaching a law firm?
Well, it's a great point actually, because I think if I was just thinking about it, I would think, oh, I've seen a job advertised, so I'll go straight to them. But that's interesting. Tell me more about the alternative.
Okay, so you're absolutely right. If a job is advertised by an employer on LinkedIn directly or on one of the other legal job boards, then frankly, you should just be applying directly, right? But should you be speculatively sending your CV to law firms that aren't actively looking and have no jobs advertised? I think that it's less likely to stick because in a flat jobs market, which is what we're experiencing at the moment for NQs, there's less chance that the employer will be recruiting on an opportunistic basis where they spot good talent. That said, if a firm has been in the news, announcing that they're in growth mode or they've recently hired a new partner, those are really strong indicators that they're more likely to embrace or certainly entertain a conversation with candidates who approach them speculatively. But if I were to offer one piece of advice about speculative applications, they're more likely to stick if you go through someone in your network who's an insider.
Yeah, that's a great point because it's highlighting the importance of our network, and that can't really be underestimated at all. And taking the time to actually do some research on the firms that you're targeting to see what activity they've been involved in, see what kind of media presence there is, and is there an indication that they might be going through a bit of a hiring process and
Precisely.
Get in there.
Yeah, there's got to be a rhyme or reason as to why they would potentially consider taking you on or at least having a conversation with you. Another reason could be that the firm has taken on a string of NQs from your firm in the past. So look at hiring trends. Where have trainees from your firm joined in the past qualification rounds, etc. can I just mention networking, because it's obviously my pet topic.
Yeah.
The hidden jobs market is so important, especially in a jobs market that's not so easy to navigate. And so for me, using people that you already know to keep their ear to the ground or to broker introductions is vitally important. And that could even include partners in teams that you've sat in as a trainee, but who haven't been able to offer you an internal NQ position. So scope out whether there's any chance that they might be able to potentially pick up the phone to their friends along the road at another firm to see whether they could broker an introduction. It's really effective. It's not huge volumes, but certainly worth exploring.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, as great tips there, great tips. Was there anything else that you wanted to share on this video?
No, I think the main thing is that you've got to take a proactive approach to this. You can't just expect an NQ job to land in your lap. And you also need to cast the net potentially wide, because the market, I do think, will continue to be difficult. But
Yeah,
manage your recruiters really carefully. It's fine to have more than one, but you mustn't let them send your CV to the same firm. So a
yeah,
little bit of micromanagement is not a bad thing. So yeah,
yeah.
so thank you for chatting to me, Matt. What
Thank you.
am I right in thinking that we're recording another video soon?
Yeah, that's right. So we're going to record another video, which will all be about essentially surviving your first 100 days of qualification. Let's picture yourself in the future. You qualified, you're 100 days in. What tips and what sort of things should you be thinking about to maximize your kind of
I look
contribution?
I look forward to recording that with you. That should be a good
Yeah,
one, because I know that that day when you can call yourself a solicitor is quite overwhelming.
yeah,
So it'll be interesting
yeah,
to hear what you think we should be doing to get through those first 100 days.
yeah, yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Nara. Great to chat as always.
Take care. Thank
Thanks
you very
everyone for
much. Bye
listening.
bye.
Bye bye.